And here we're going to be thinking, so here we're going to be thinking of aggression as a vice, as an extreme, going beyond or making a mistake. And then for the golden mean, the balance between two behavioral extremes, we're going to be thinking of assertiveness. So then, of course, we're thinking of weakness as a vice, an extreme of deficit, not having enough of something, that is being assertive. We're thinking about aggression being a vice of extreme in terms of going beyond, and that is having too much of whatever makes you assertive. So we're going to be thinking of assertive as a word that names a character trait that a police officer should have when they need to maybe arrest someone, and what they need to and how they need to use their power and force when and if somebody is not being compliant with being arrested, or getting them to comply with what they're there to do. We'll be reasoning from the extremes. This is a very important term. We're going to say reasoning, and I'm going to want to see this somewhere in your write-up. Reasoning from the extremes. Okay? And so the idea here basically, as you'll see as you're working through this, sorry about that, is that I'm going to give you directions on how to construct an informed definition on weakness. Then you're going to use that definition for weakness to discuss what would it have looked like if Derek Chauvin was weak in his use of power to arrest or do whatever it was that he was there to do George Floyd. So you'll construct and research an informed definition, then you'll use that definition to discuss what it would look like if he didn't have enough assertiveness as a police officer. So that will be kind of like step one. And then for step two, you will use what I teach you about constructing an informed research-based definition for aggression, and then you'll discuss why, as most of you have, you think that he was overly aggressive in his use of power with George Floyd. And so the idea here is that you're reasoning from the extremes, right? What would it look like if he was too weak? Because we definitely wouldn't want Derek Chauvin to show weakness as a police officer, right? But then, of course, maybe we don't want him, or he ought not to show aggression, which many of you say he did. So now, reasoning from our informed definitions and discussion of the two, what would it have looked like for him to show assertiveness then? Okay, so again, the idea is you will be reasoning from the extremes to this. And of course, you're going to be doing this last. You're going to be defining assertiveness and then discussing what it would have looked like for him to be assertive, given the definition, but also in light of what you have discussed here. In doing so, again, I cannot emphasize enough that we will be applying Aristotle's virtue ethics, his concept of a vice in terms of an extreme of deficit, a vice, an extreme of excess, to reason to figure out, using our rational powers, the golden mean. Specifically, the context, George Floyd and the killing of him by Derek Chauvin, using these particular words that name character traits. Now, I understand that some of you might say that aggression is over here and can actually be a golden mean or a moral virtue. But for the sake of this exercise and just showing me that you can think like Aristotle, we're going to go ahead and stipulate, assume, presuppose that this is an extreme of deficit, a vice, this is an extreme of excess, a vice, and that this word is the one that names the golden mean, and that we'll be thinking about these in a specific context, of course.